thought that was, couldn't even be creative.
You're incredibly bad at it.
I'm the anti-gas hole, so we'll say that.
Well, about that?
Only one wearing a shirt with a collar, I noticed.
That's right. That's because we pick on him.
So.
And I think he changed it because he had his disco shirt on.
Hey, I bet we got to let our guest introduce himself, but Todd, this is not meant to be as a slight, but I think you would be one that would know who Disco Stew is. Am I correct?
Oh yeah. Of course, yeah. I quote The Simpsons all the time.
So these two had never heard of it, and just really quickly, a couple weeks ago, we were recording, and Stu showed up with like this flashy, like purple shirt,
like
and
John Travolta.
I started calling him Disco Stew, and they didn't know who Disco Stew was, which was even better once they realized who he was.
And then we looked it up.
I'm glad that we have a guest that can actually appreciate the joke. So
yeah.
So with that, Stu just got an annulment from John Paul II when he married either Patty or Selma briefly.
That's great.
All right. So with that, Todd, introduce yourself.
My name is Todd Long. I'm the electronic content administrator for Huntsville Utilities. We're a 3-service utility, electric, water, and natural gas in Huntsville, Alabama.
Awesome. Now we appreciate having you on, and definitely
glad to be here.
Glad to have a conversation with you. I know you and I have worked together on different things, and I think when I wore that shirt, not Disco Stew, but I was thinking former colleague of yours, John Olszewski, and some of his loud shirts that he used to wear.
Yes,
so,
his Hawaiian shirts and everything that he always used to wear. I think once he got to the point in his career where the government wasn't telling him what to wear every day, I think he kind of swung the other direction. And,
he was like, I'm doing it.
Out there.
He's not hard to miss anyways. So.
No, not at all. No.
So anyways, Todd, if you could tell us just maybe a little bit about yourself, kind of how you found yourself at Huntsville Utilities, and just give everybody a little background story.
What do you do in your free time, all that stuff.
Blood type, security number.
I actually started off, I was in broadcasting for about 20 years. I was a television producer.
No way.
At the local level. I worked at television stations. If you ever watch, and I guess people still do watch broadcast TV, but for the people who did used to watch broadcast TV, you would see these commercials that would come on that said, tonight at 10 or 11 for you on the Eastern time zone. We're going to tell you about the one I like to quote, actually, as an example, is the one from The Simpsons, where Kent Brockman comes on and he says, a certain brand of soft drink has been found to be lethal. We'll tell you which one after weather and sports. My first job in television was writing those little commercials, topicals. And so I did that for a long time. Worked in Southeast Missouri, where I was born and raised.
Are there any clips on YouTube?
Oh gosh,
I'm gonna look.
There might be.
Already
I don't know. There could very well be. I don't know.
If there is, I'm cutting one in.
Okay.
Sorry.
There might be. I don't know. I did it for a long time, and I also worked in Phoenix, Arizona, for a while, Omaha, Nebraska, and came down here to Huntsville. And finally just decided just kind of wanted to do something else, and bounced around a little bit. I was in the Air Force for a while, so I worked for one of the defense contractors here. And then one day just found out about they created this job at Huntsville Utilities. They needed someone, they call it electronic content administrator. And I think it took them a couple of weeks to come up with that name, but it was basically started off someone just to manage the social media accounts. Once I started off doing that, then it kind of expanded into, you used to work in television, so you can help with the media relations. Before we had a legislative person, I kind of helped with the government relations. That's how Stu and I got acquainted. So now I basically do any kind of electronic communication, internal, external, or website content. That's pretty much
awesome.
it. Yeah. And we've lived here. I've been with the company for about 7.5 years. Lived in Huntsville for about a dozen years. Got 3 kids. My oldest actually went into the family business, and he's producing newscasts for the ABC affiliate in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
that's cool.
I have so many questions about that, but that's what we're not.
No, we're not talking about that.
I know, dude.
Take this in a different direction, Kubo.
We can talk about the energy that's needed for television production. We can segue this. So, Todd, if you don't mind, tell a little bit more about Huntsville Utilities, what they do there in the city,
Sure.
how they serve, that type of stuff.
Okay. Well, like I said, we're a 3-service utility. Electric is our largest customer. We cover all of Huntsville, of course, and Madison County. We have about 223,000 electric customers. We're roughly the 16th or 17th largest public power utility in the country. We also cover Redstone Arsenal, which is, of course, a big thing here in Huntsville, where they have, NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center is there. We have Boeing, Raytheon, all the big defense contractors are here. We also provide water, but our water footprint is not nearly as big. And then we have, well, it's about 100,000 water customers. We're basically just the city limits of Huntsville. And then our natural gas, we have about 62,000 natural gas customers right now. We are one of those states that very friendly towards natural gas. Our state legislature, right? It wasn't just one. State legislature passed an ordinance, I believe it was a year or two ago, that basically prohibited any municipality from putting restrictions on what kind of these natural gas bans that you see in other cities. They stopped that before it could even start. It wasn't really an issue here, but now
Todd, I have a
it won't be
question
an
though.
issue. Yeah,
I have a question about that
Sure.
because you guys do have that big Air Force or military base by the US. Do you guys service gas into there? And have you heard about that turning off essentially? Sorry, I know that was like
we haven't heard about. Well, we do,
but
when I first started, we did not cover the arsenal.
Gotcha.
The arsenal was outside our running. We do now. We have a special kind of agreement where we basically keep everything on the arsenal running for them.
Gotcha.
But that's electric, water, and natural gas. Yeah. But no, I mean, I personally haven't heard anything. Now they keep me down here in the basement, so I don't know. But no, that to my knowledge, I haven't heard anything about that.
It's a federal thing.
Being a kind of a three-headed monster in the utility world, water, electric, and natural gas. Do you guys have any what the word is, maybe like requirements or programs or anything that you're kind of trying to achieve as far as in the renewable sector to supplement your electric?
A little bit.
Okay.
We do a little bit. We don't generate any electricity here. We are partnered with Tennessee Valley Authority.
Okay.
And so we purchase all our electricity from TVA. And in our most recent agreement, all the LPCs that work with TVA had this agreement actually, where we are now allowed to purchase a certain percentage of our electricity from a source other than TVA.
Okay.
And so one of the things that we did year and a half ago is we have a very large Mazda Toyota manufacturing facility here and a Toyota motor manufacturing. And so we partnered with one of their subsidiaries, which is a name that I always get tongue-tied when I try to say it, but it starts with an M, Mashu Shitu or something like that. Our CEO, Wes, can say it very well.
We got it.
But a subsidiary of Toyota. And we built a very large solar farm on some land just north of their manufacturing facility. And so now we purchase some of the electricity from that when the sun is shining, of course. So that's and there's talk of maybe another one of those going online in the next couple of years. So that's really kind of a new thing for us that we are kind of getting into. We're also looking very heavily into storage options. We tested a thing. One of the things that Huntsville is known for is we have the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, which is the home of Space Camp. And we partnered with an organization called Seven States Power. And we built a solar-powered electric vehicle charging station in the parking lot of the U.S. Space and Rocket Center. And part of that features a storage element that's kind of being experimented with.
For electric rockets?
For electric, yes. Electric rockets. Yeah, the next Saturn V is going to be electric. Yeah, could be a hamster running really, really fast. So we have had we're experimenting with it, mostly on the electric side, of course. But the thing about Huntsville as well, and this kind of goes back to the whole thing about the freedom to fuel, is for a while, I actually had our natural gas department come to me and say, look, quit promoting natural gas on social media because our waiting list is 6 months right now.
Wow.
No kidding.
We had people lining up. We couldn't get the mains in the ground fast enough
Wow.
to
So-
service people.
So, I live in a much different state. I'm in New York, a
Okay.
little bit more liberal.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of dialogue and a lot of conversation in New York regarding basically ways to phase out fossil fuels, primarily natural gas. And some of them state driven, some of them federally driven, some some from different avenues. I assume and I guess the question I have is I assume that a state like Alabama, right, has which has more of a conservative base and is run much more conservative than the state that I live in. Do you guys or have you had any discussions about some of those mandates or some of those state regulations that other states are implementing? Or is that even a concern for the folks in Alabama? I think it's funny that you said, and the reason I thought this is you'd mentioned that you have a 6-month waiting list for people to get natural gas. And I don't know if more like liberal run states are having that same issue. I don't know that to be true or not. But I know that I've seen a lot of the financial part of people putting money into new infrastructure and things, specifically for natural gas pipelines in those areas, have kind of receded. They haven't really like full board. I'm just wondering if you guys have, I mean, obviously you've not been impacted by it, but is it a discussion piece? Is it something that you consider or that you guys think you may be forced to consider moving forward?
I can only speak from my opinion on that. To my knowledge, we've had no discussions about that because it's just not a concern in Alabama. In the last election, I believe the Alabama went for President Trump somewhere between 75 and 80%. I mean, it's the reddest state in the union, quite honestly. And so it's just the thing that makes us kind of interesting is that Huntsville's now the largest city in Alabama. And it's one of the fastest growing cities in the Southeast. And we have people coming from all over the world here. So while the rest of Alabama is deep, deep red, Huntsville's a bit more purple. So it hasn't really affected us in the fact that there's still not so many people here that we're hearing protest against natural gas and fossil fuels. That's just not happening. So, and it's not really happening statewide. So while it's not really a concern, it is obviously something we pay attention to.
Sure.
Because times change. And who knows what it's going to be in 10 years.
I think I just find it very interesting, depending on where you live, and we're all in the United States of America, and depending on where you live, kind of the position of the state or the legislative, folks in your state and how that transcends down to folks like yourself. I mean, you're a little different in the sense that obviously Chad and myself and Stuart work in the industry. But Chad and I are a manufacturer. Stu does not. And then there's you guys. That's for the earlier comment. I'm gonna get you back a couple before we started recording. Stu had a bunch to say. But in all seriousness, it's unique to talk to people from different parts of the country that aren't even experiencing or having the conversations that we're having. I wonder sometimes how you can have progress in specifically, and if you consider it progress, right? If you can have progress in the renewable market, if everybody's not on board with that, and it's really just a state issue.
Yeah, it is kind of a double-edged sword for us because there is a lot of, well, there really isn't. Here's a good example. We had up until recently on the Huntsville City Council, even the woman who was the most liberal member of our city council loved natural gas. And she was a Bernie Sanders supporter. She was, the most, and she did a great job on the city council. She was a big supporter of us. Sure. But if I posted anything about natural gas, it's like I couldn't live without my natural gas stove. I love how my heating bills are lower in the winter. I mean, so
I think there's a practicality to it too, which I think
exactly
lost in politics.
Yeah.
Right. It's the practicality of it.
So I think so while we do have very much the support of people when it comes to natural gas, just to be quite frank about it, there is just some downright hatred towards things like electric vehicles, wind power, things like that. And we talk anything about that, and suddenly we're hippies,
communists.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No,
and so it's so we have to walk a fine line when we talk about renewables, because there's just a lot of ingrained, well, that's just renewables is a buzzword that liberals use.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I'm not trying to take their position on it, because I'm certainly not, but I think the point of this podcast or webcast or whatever the hell this is to create a space where you're able to have conversations with folks just regarding, we talked about it last week or the week prior, I can't recall. We talked about it at length many times, but the reality is that, as we have more people to show up on the earth and we create more technology that requires additional sources of energy, the reality is that if people want to, we talked about this a bit with Lisa, but if people want to like really explore this AI platform, the amount of energy that is required to be able to achieve that. And I don't think people fully understand that. I think they're so rooted, and I'm glad that you said this, in the sense that, like, if you're talking about renewable energy, you're a liberal. And if you're talking about fossil fuels, you're a conservative.
Yeah.
And I think that's I think that's wrong. And it's so funny, because I mean, one side wants to point the finger at the other side and say, you're not understanding where we're coming from. And the other side turns around and says, you're not understanding where we're coming from. And the reality is that I think both have a collective space, but we've created this environment, a political environment where, and I don't know how this happened so quickly. I think it happened in the last 10 years or so, but we've created this political environment where, if you have an R or D next to your name, like you're like almost demonized, depending on what points and policies you agree with.
Yeah, it's no longer the thing that got me was, I was talking about this with somebody earlier today, after the assassination attempt against Mr. Trump, and everybody was like, "Oh, we got to tone this down. We got to tone this down. We got to tone this down."
It lasted about 30 minutes.
That's over. Yeah, that's been over for a while.
That was 30 minutes.
And so now and I get that we're in the height of political season right now, and these things get ramped up a little more. But we've come to the point where we don't have discussions anymore.
No.
It's just, let's just call each other names. And
I mean, it's like we've gotten away from being able to disagree with people without still being respectful.
Right. You can't disagree anymore. And to me, and not to get too lost in the political weeds here, but to me, it's not so much it's the parties aren't about, okay, well, let's talk about what we can do to help the people that we represent. What can we do to make the other guys look bad? That's the top priority.
It's just a power pissing match.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
You just say the B word?
I said P.
Now I gotta figure out how to. Now I gotta figure out how to.
B. I said P.
I don't know what you. I think you. I don't know.
I said pissing. You can say pissing. That's not a bad word.
You did it twice.
Said it again.
Anyways, it's just. I realized that really, honestly, more so, and sometimes I think that you kind of get caught up in your side. And I think that that's problematic. And I want to get back to the just kind of more about what you guys are doing. One of the things that you had been working on previously was the Freedom to Fuel podcast with the Colonel. And I know that he's since moved into a different role, and that's kind of like gone away. But I just want to ask you about that, as far as when you start a podcast, you don't really fully understand like who's going to watch it, if anybody's going to watch it, if it's even going to create any value. And usually for the first 6 months, nobody does, and you're just kind of talking to yourself on a computer screen, which is what we're doing here. But
we've got six. We got six.
There you go.
So
I'll try and remember to follow myself too.
But I think that
7.
I think the question I had for you is number one, in the time that you were doing it, like what was the messaging from Freedom to Fuel? What were you trying to accomplish? And at the end, did you feel like you did?
I think if you asked John and I that question, I think you might get different answers. For
That's
me,
all right. He's
it
not here.
was, that's right.
He's
No,
next week. He's
yeah.
next week. No.
To me, it was about, I think it was kind of what you were saying earlier about, if if you've got an R or a D next to your name, you have to believe certain things.
Yeah.
And our point of view is no, you don't. If you want to have natural gas in your home, you should have natural gas in your home. If you don't want it, that's fine too.
Sure.
If you want to drive an electric car, drive an electric car. If
Sure.
you don't, that's fine too. That it's a big debate in our house because we're kind of getting to the point where thinking about, I've been driving the same beat up Toyota pickup truck for about, 10 years now. And, I'm kind of thinking it'd be nice to get something different. And I've looked at electric cars.
They're
For
sick.
me,
Yeah, they're awesome though.
yeah, my
You're
boss
driving
has
them
one.
not far.
It's really cool. Yeah. I live about 10, 12 miles from the office.
Yeah, it's perfect.
And I pass half a dozen gas stations, all of which gas in Huntsville sitting at about $3 a gallon right now.
Yeah, that's Ohio too. Right
Pro-
around.
New York is
probably
not.
better than what you guys are playing.
Ohio's
Yeah.
not bad. We're about the same.
Yeah. But not to date myself too much, but I still remember I was not driving at the time. I was too young to drive, but I remember the outrage in this country when gas hit $1 a gallon.
Yeah.
And now it's, now if you're driving down the street and you see that it's $2.75,
You're
you're like, oh man, I got to get in there and fill this
Yeah, I'm
thing
in
up
New York.
while it's on sale.
I'm in New York and we're like 380-ish, and it's
Yeah.
like you don't even consider it anymore. It's wild.
No, you don't even. Yeah, I remember a story we did in Omaha once where we put the camera at the gas station, waited till people pulled in, and then asked them how much you paying per gallon. People just weren't looking anymore. But anyway, it's a debate in my house because when I brought up buying an electric car, my wife was like, "We're not doing that. I'm not buying an electric car." I was like, "Well, you're not going to be one driving it. It's going to be me. What do you care?" But for her, the whole thing was range anxiety. She just didn't want to have to, get an extension cord, plug it in the house, and then, drag it to find me when I'm stuck on the side of the road.
Right.
But that was kind of the point of the whole freedom to fuel things. Look, if there are some people who they don't want it for whatever reason. Maybe, they think it's a climate change thing, whatever the case may be, and that's fine. If you don't want it, that's fine. But if you do, you should have the right.
What our country's based on.
Yeah, it's the whole point of everything.
But it's almost like it's almost. I know that sounds crazy, but it's almost like if the majority of people see somebody driving down the road in an electric vehicle, what is the first thing that they're going to think?
Depends on.
Well, I know what you're looking for. That they're Democratic.
Yeah,
liberal.
Oh, yeah.
It's the first thing that you're going to think. Same thing with a Subaru, but that's a whole different story. That's
you touching a nerve.
For all you Subaru owners, I know where you're voting. Yeah,
I got 2 Subarus. You're touching a nerve.
Of course you do.
You have 2 Subarus too?
I do.
If one's a hatchback, we can't be friends. I'm just saying.
If one's a hatchback, we can't be friends. It's a Subaru.
But I think that like it's almost like not even acceptable to have a different opinion. Like somebody you've just said it. Like no matter what whatever party you most closely associate with, that's what you have to believe. There's like no wiggle room. There's no people that are like, really in the center that much anymore, or at least portray that they are. And I find that bizarre to me. I think you make a great point, and Stuart, I pick on you a lot because you ride your bike and your electric vehicles, and clearly got Subaru. What else you got? But I'm pretty sure you have on like woven burlap shorts on underneath.
My hemp shoes.
Yeah. But I think that there's just there's a space for in America to have the ability of choice and the freedom to have choice. And it's almost like you're not allowed to anymore because of how you'll be viewed, right? Like you drive an electric car, you're clearly a liberal, right? Throw bumpers. You got bumper sticks on it too, Stu? Bumper stickers? There's bumper stickers.
No, we didn't do bumper stickers. But if I could though,
Sorry.
No, I have been in Vermont though. But if I could though, just pivot a little bit. We talked about consumer choice, and I'm all for it. I'm all the above. But Todd, I know you and I have chatted, and I'd love to get your anecdote here about reliability. and just how important it is for consumers to have reliable access to energy. So my
Well,
boss loves to tell this story. I'll tell it real fast.
yeah.
Was driving from Mississippi, or driving from Washington D.C. to see family in Mississippi. It was Christmas time, going to see family for Christmas. We stopped in Oxford, Mississippi, and that's why my boss loves to tell a story, because I'm a Mississippi State fan. Oxford is where Ole Miss is. That's our big rival. He likes to give me a hard time. Anyway, Oxford has good restaurants though, so I will say that for Oxford. But and we were at a restaurant eating breakfast, and they were having rolling blackouts because it was extremely cold. You remember this Christmas, it was extremely cold, and the power provider was served by TVA, and TVA had to cut the power off to prevent too much, because they were going to, shut down the system.
Right.
But they were cooking my breakfast on a gas grill. So I
Exactly,
still got to eat, even though I had to
Right.
use my, even had to eat in the dark. But talk about Huntsville Utilities experience during that,
Yeah.
during
Well,
that period, and what's happened since and what may happen in the future.
the interesting thing about that, when that happened, and the thing is, TVA had been around, at that point had been around 90 years, and this had never happened before, ever, to TVA. They never had to do rolling blackouts. The backstory on that a lot of people didn't know at the time was, it was not that the system was maxed out. It was all the system that was available was maxed out. There was a unit that they could not get back online. And so that's what caused part of the problem. They actually did rolling blackouts for 2 days. In Huntsville, we dodged the first day, because part of the thing was the fact that it was the week of Christmas. A lot of our big manufacturers were shut down. And so we were able to get below the threshold that TVA was saying you had to get below with these rolling blackouts. That, quite honestly, if I may use a word we've are tossing around freely here, that pissed off a lot of the other LPCs, that because they didn't really understand. They just thought
the whole video.
they thought, well, Huntsville's getting special treatment. Well, it wasn't that we were getting special treatment. It's just that we got under the threshold. The second day we weren't so lucky. But yeah, it was a lot of the same thing. We did hear from people who were like, well, I'm so glad I've got natural gas. We saw our request for natural gas go up after that. So yeah, and that's, we weren't happy about it. Nobody was happy about it. I was, last thing I wanted to do was spend Christmas in the war room at our electric operations thing, dealing with angry people on social media. That's what I ended up having to do. But that was well,
no, sorry, not today.
I still had one kid in college at that point. I couldn't really afford it.
Good move.
And 2 others warming up in the bullpen. So, and a wife with a fistful of credit cards. No, she's a nurse, and she's going to watch this. I don't want to get yelled at. She's a registered nurse. She makes a lot of money. So yeah.
Hey, we're gonna be
yeah, she's much more fiscally responsible.
Want to give her a shout out? Love her. You want to just cover?
Yeah, anything good, Drew?
Well, we're getting ready. Actually, we're getting ready to take our 25th anniversary. Actually back in December. But our son was graduating college the same week. So
you were trying to address. You're trying to answer
angry
emails from customers because of power blackouts.
We're going to Ireland for 10 days next month. So that's our big 25th anniversary thing.
How many Guinnesses do you think you'll drink over there?
Do what?
How many Guinnesses do you think you'll drink on the way?
All of them.
Every single one they put in front.
So, but that was a lot of what we saw too, is we did see people saying, wow, I'm so glad I have natural gas heat. Because it was ungodly cold. It was just awful, especially in Alabama, where it doesn't get that cold.
We call that up here?
It was bone chilling cold.
Well, it's spring and fall.
We call that Tuesday up here.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a great point. And again, it kind of leads back into the whole as much energy as humanly possible, right? Like that's what we should be focusing on. Because at no point in time in a civilized world should we have to shut people off in the cold winter months and potentially put people in life-threatening situations. And
well, and one of the things that we used to hear a lot, because we're in this part of the country, very volatile weather, especially in the spring and summer. We have just awful storms, thunderstorms, tornadoes, and everything. And we'll have power outages, and we'll hear people. This happened before the big winter storm that they had down there, but we would hear people say, "Well, we need to do what Texas did.
Mm.
And then Texas had that really bad winter,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to make light of it because people lost their lives.
Yeah,
Yeah,
People
100%.
froze to death, and we don't hear that anymore.
Yeah, but it's crazy that
That
there
wasn't
were
that
out.
wasn't the solution either, I think.
Yeah.
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 But I think all those people that had to deal with a blackout situation would have been more than happy if their electricity came from a renewable source at that time.
Yeah, they weren't caring where but here's the thing too. A lot of people think, oh, well, we're TVA, we're getting our water from all the dams. It's a very small portion of TVA's portfolio. A lot of it is natural gas power plants, nuclear. And in fact, speaking of nuclear, I read an article the other day, going back to what you were talking about, all the power that's needed for AI. I read where they are talking about firing up 3 Mile Island again. Because they need, because of the demand specifically being placed in the
They
area.
already wrecked the area. What's the difference?
Yeah,
You have to wear a lead suit to go to work.
Chernobyl's next. I'm just gonna turn that song on.
Yeah, just turn that thing on, and then we can all go back to having Google Gemini create funny pictures for us, which is all I use it for, honestly. But so the energy has to come from somewhere, and I think when you flip on your light switch, I don't care where it comes from. I don't care if it comes from the river or solar or whatever the case may be. Just as long as it comes on.
People only care, Todd, when it doesn't turn on.
Work.
Exactly, and that's what I tell people. One of the things we try to do with our social media pages is kind of humanize the company a little bit, because most of the time people only think about us when the power's out and when they get their bill. Yep. And neither one of those are necessarily happy experiences.
You're only good as your last mistake, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And so, and when the lasting thing about that, the situation at Christmas with the rolling blackouts was when we started going into that summer, we started getting questions, because are there going to be rolling blackouts? Yeah. Anytime there was a power outage, people assumed it was a rolling blackout. Huh. It left a very lingering bad taste in people's mouths for a while. And I went to, to TVA's credit, they fully said, here's what happened. We did not want this to happen. We're going to do everything we can to keep it from happening. And Huntsville Utilities is part of what they call the Big Nine, which is the 9 largest LPCs that buy their power from TVA. And we had a lot of meetings where we had some pretty frank conversations with TVA. And the people from TVA are saying, this will not happen again.
Famous last words.
That's what I said. I said, you don't let your mouth write a check, your butt can't cash. That's a big promise to make.
Yeah.
So you better be able to back it up. Now, to TVA's credit, they are taking a lot of they're building more generation, and even with the intense heat that we have had in the Southeast this summer, we haven't had any problems. So, I know, but it's like I said, yeah, when you flip that switch, or really more importantly, you want to make sure your air conditioner is going to kick on. You want to make sure your heater is going to kick on if it's not natural gas. We had a power outage the other day while I was at the gym, and one of the first things I did was get off the machines and run in and take a shower, because I knew they didn't have natural gas water heaters. I wanted to get to hot water before everybody else. So yeah, I think, I think people like to, and this is a big problem with social media, we could really go down. Everybody's an expert on everything. Yeah. But when people are sitting behind their keyboards, especially during a political season, and when you've got one of the conventions going on this week, everybody's an expert on. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not plugged in then. Something else is picking me up. I was sitting here thinking I looked real cool.
It was just for show.
Everybody's suddenly an expert on energy policy, and so. But
suddenly everybody's an expert on everything.
Well, one of the things about the rolling blackouts was people said, well, because we're the closest TVA generation facility to us is Browns Ferry Nuclear. And people were like, well, why are we having rolling blackouts? Browns Ferry's right up the road. Well, that's not really how TVA works. Yeah. It's not really how it works. So it's, everybody is an expert, and when you live in a city like Huntsville, which has more people with PhDs than any city in the country, we have the highest percentage of people with doctorates per capita. I'm not one of them, by the way. Have my bachelor's and I'm fine with that. But and I'm not trying to say that, you know, everybody on social media doesn't know something. I mean, there are intelligent people on social media, but you know, when the power's out, everybody, the thing that I love was when people say, "Oh, I heard a transformer blow." So, trust me, brother, no, you didn't. I've seen videos of transformers blowing. That ain't what you heard. So
yeah, I think when it comes down to like social media, though, I think one of the issues is, you know, yeah, some people know something, some people know another, but I think what happens is that it's such an easy way to share misinformation.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm not getting into saying we should police free speech or anything like that. I'm just saying that you guys have heard, at least Chad has heard this before. You have people that have massive followings, millions and millions of followers.
Right.
But when they put out information that's inaccurate, or even, I shouldn't say, I don't think they do it maliciously. I just think that they're uneducated, and then they what they do is they unknowingly uneducate the rest of the people that are following them.
I think you're exactly right to a degree, because I do think there are people who do it maliciously.
I agree, but I don't think it's all that.
The problem is, as technology advances, it makes it easier to do. Whereas before it was, you know, two guys standing around the water cooler at work, and one guy says, well, you know, I know I heard this and I heard that, and you know, they say this and they say that, and now it's just a lot easier to do, and it's a lot easier to do anonymously.
Well, we're the stupidest, smartest we've ever been.
Yeah. Yeah. It's mind-boggling sometimes, and you know, I'll sit there, because nature of my job, I spend a lot of time on social media, and I'll see things on there, and you know, I just think,
shake your head.
Yeah, and you know, I see things posted by people that I went to high school and college with, and I'll sit and I'll think, come on, man, you know that's not true, you know that's incorrect.
I think a lot of people are still follow a political affiliation just because they always have. And the reason I say that, but I have college friends of mine that are liberal, very liberal. We're very good friends. We don't talk about politics, but I don't even think that they realize that they aren't liberal.
Yeah.
Like they've just always been Democrats and always been Democrats. So they're just like, yeah, I'm a Democrat and this is who I'm voting for. But then when you talk to them, like, what you're saying and what you want is not
the same thing.
Voting for.
Right.
You know, it doesn't translate. But I mean, we could beat this horse to death. And I mean, I'm the worst at this because I love talking about politics. I'll talk about it all day long.
And you have 2 minutes until you have to leave.
I mean, I have to take my kid to the doctor. That's the theme of the week, guys. Joe has to leave the show to go to the doctors or
the urgent care.
Or urgent care, or the orthodontist, or the dentist. This is a big doctor.
None of it for him, which is even better.
Yeah. So, Todd, I just I wanna ask maybe one last question before we go. I know that you guys are doing some things as far as HUTV, and I know you're doing some other things. Why don't you just talk about some of the things that you're doing quickly, and where people might be able to view them if they're interested in taking a look?
Sure. What we try to I'll try to make this as succinct as I can. One of the things that we try to do is there's a ton of content out there, and we don't want to be your typical utility company when it comes to social media. And I think for the most part, we're not. The thing that we try to do is we want to put useful information out there. We don't post stuff just to be posting it, but if we can teach you something or explain something to you and do it in a fun manner, then that's what we're going to do.
Cool.
We used to call the HUTV show, we would often call it a serious topic sandwiched in silliness. And we used to have, we still have it. We have a cardboard cutout of our CEO, and we would say, okay, well, this week's episode, here's this week's sponsor of this week's episode, brought to you by Flat Wes. And there would be this picture of Wes doing this, and then we would superimpose like Kleenex. This is brought to you by Kleenex. Great for blowing your nose. And we would just see how silly we could be. And we would say, oh, well, you know, guests on HUTV receive a copy of the HUTV home game, and we'd show video of people playing the game. It's just, you know, we
write all this down. Write all this down.
I'm just going to email them afterwards so you can do it for me.
We post all this stuff on our YouTube channel. It's just go to YouTube and search Huntsville Utilities. We started doing a new thing. Because like I said, the HUTV episodes just take a long time to produce, and it's just myself and Amanda, who usually sits next to me, but she's not here right now. She is going to yell at me later though, because of that. This is our studio, and I just, a bad habit of just piling stuff up somewhere.
Yeah,
She's
you made it a
going to be
capital.
mad at me.
You
She
made it a
was
capital.
lecturing me earlier. She said, make sure they can't see behind you. It's like, what am I supposed to do?
Whatever. It's real life.
You're
This
good.
is real life.
But
We get it from Amazon though. I'm just
Hey,
saying.
what did she get? Oh, we do a thing called education days, and those are little teaching tools that they're going to use at education. But
we'll
yeah, just go
also
to our
post on
Facebook,
YouTube
Twitter, Instagram. Go to all those. We try to post silly stuff there. We try to engage with our customers as much as we can. We try to have fun doing it for two reasons. One, because we want to get the information out there in a memorable manner. And secondly, if I'm going to be here 40 hours plus a week working, I'm going to have fun doing it.
Cool. If you wouldn't mind,
Yeah.
post this. If you would send me just some links to those Facebook, Instagram, Twitter pages.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I'll post them when we post the video.
Oh, okay. Yeah, great. And we encourage people to follow us, to interact with us, to ask us questions. A lot of times we will go down to our call center, which is right down the hall, and say, hey, what kind of questions are you guys getting? And we'll do videos about it.
That's cool.
We're here to have fun.
I think we should do a part 2 with Mr. Todd.
Oh,
100%.
I'd love to do that.
And I'd like to carve out 20 minutes to talk about the TV stuff because I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't really care what your opinion is, Joe.
So let's just call this part 1.
Okay.
We'll end it here, and then we'll let's record a part 2 because I think there's a lot of good conversation here, and you're fun to talk to and easy.
Oh, thank you. It's I was
hard to look at, but really fun to talk.
Yeah.
Can't win them all.
I do a lot of voiceover work from time to time. I really do. Yeah.
What do they say? Face made for radio? Is that what it
Face
is?
made for radio. That's right. Yeah, I was never an on-camera person in the TV business. I was always behind the camera.
No, all kidding aside, really appreciate you taking the time to come see us
seriously.
today.
I was thrilled when Stuart asked me to do it. I actually stumbled on the show. I think he tweeted it out or something, and I was like, Stu, and because he had called me when we stopped doing Freedom to. You did that? He's called me when we stopped doing Freedom to Fuel. And he said, I kind of think we still need to keep doing something. And I said, yeah, I kind of think you do too. And then suddenly I see Stu in the gas holes. I was like, oh, John never would have let me call it that. And I love John to death. John is the main reason we have all this stuff.
That's awesome.
Because they hired me
sometime.
Yeah. And I just started doing stuff. And at the time he was the vice president of our department. And I'm sitting in my office one day, and here's Big John comes in, and he's standing there, and I talked to him maybe once, and he says, I don't really understand what it is you do. And I thought it was a good run.
To teach you.
And then he said, but don't stop doing it. And I said, yes, sir. And
I'm hoping that maybe in the next conversation we can talk about how we might be able to collaborate on some things, because I think
I would love to. Absolutely love to
benefit both of us, and it'd be good for the industry. So
we are always looking for stuff like that, and I will try to make it. Maybe Amanda can be here when we talk next time.
Okay, cool.
Because technically she's the photographer, videographer, but I'm the one who produces all those videos.
Understood.
Because that's what I did for 20 years, and
we'll get the brains to come on next time for sure.
She's much better. She's much better looking than I am. She's very much my work wife. She and my real wife, I can't escape. They will collaborate with each other. I know you got to go, but I'll do a quick story. I went through weight loss surgery a couple of years ago and dropped 120 pounds.
Holy cow!
And I had this shirt that and I loved this shirt. I got it from a radio station in Atlanta, and I used to wear it all the time. And she hated this shirt, and my wife hated that shirt.
They conspired.
They would not. Neither one of them would let it go. And finally, one day, I just brought it in here and I threw it down on her desk. I said, "There you go." And it's hanging up in our.
It's now a relic
in our closet. I told her, I said, "I'm going to hang it from the light rig like a retired jersey." Hobie's jersey hanging.
You should frame it. Just frame it. So I gotta run. I apologize. Let's do this again. Let's get something on the calendar, and we'll just do a part 2, and we'll put them out subsequently.
And from the 17th to the 25th of September, that's when I'm out of the country. So we can do it before then. We can I can do it anytime in those days.
All right, guys.
I would love to work with you guys some more.
Sounds good.
Appreciate you coming on, and thank you so much.
Anytime. Thanks a lot.
Thank you all so
Opportunity to
much.
be on.
Yep.
This goes
Bye-bye.
to